famous Sephardic families that have been in Jewish history. And we know one of the families that definitely stand out, especially within regards to the country of Turkey or possibly the Netherlands and various other places, is a famous Pallache family. We'll pronounce it Pallache into today's, let's just say, feature-length video on this. It was a rabbinic dynasty. Now, there's different ways of pronouncing the name, as we said on the outright, which have various different variations, I should say. It's a prominent, though, Ladino-speaking Sephardic Jewish family from the Iberian Peninsula, and would spread mostly through the Mediterranean, let's just say after the Alhambra decree of March 31st, 1492, also around the time period of the Spanish Inquisition and various different events that actually took place around that specific era in of itself. Now, the Pallaches, the family, would establish themselves in various cities, including in Morocco, in the Netherlands, and we spoke about that a few days ago, in Turkey, in Egypt, and in various other countries also, especially from the 1500s all the way through till the 1900s. The family is going to include many chief rabbis, and we've spoken about some of the rabbis already, especially Rabbi Chaim Pallache, Rabbi Rachamim, Rabbi Aaron Pallache. So it will include, let's just say, chief rabbis, founders of synagogues, let's say founders of Beit Midrashes, let's just say scientists, entrepreneurs, writers, let's just say very well-known people, for example, were Moroccan envoys and brothers, the famous Samuel Pallache. He happened to have been, just say, for example, just to start up, he was a famous, let's say, diplomat, merchant, pirate, let's just say, and he was, concluded a treaty, I think, with the Dutch Republic in the year 1608, for example. Yosef Pallache, another famous Jewish Moroccan merchant and diplomat also. Then there was three grand rabbis in Turkey, which you just mentioned. Obviously, the great Rabbi Chaim Pallache, also known his titles are Chacham Bashi. He was a Gaon, he was a genius of Turkey, passed away in 1868. Once again, Rabbi Abraham Pallache passed away just before the start of the 20th century. He was also a great author and a brother, I believe, of Rabbi Rachamim Nissim Pallache, and also Rabbi Nissim Pallache, who passed away in the year 1907, also once again an author and a famous rabbi, let's just say. Now, also in Turkey, in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, there'll be great rabbis, including Rabbi Yitzchak Judah Pallache, who we're going to speak about. He was, I think, the chief rabbi of the Portuguese community over there between 1900 to 1926. There'll be other famous, let's say, mineralogists, someone named Charles Pallache, who we're going to speak about. I think he was based in the United States and passed away 71 years ago. And Judah Leon Pallache, who happened to be, I think, a professor of Semitic languages, very much part of the University of Amsterdam. So let's explore some of the history within regards to him. So, inquisitions and expulsions. We know, I think, according to various historians, I think Gerard Wiegers, for example, the Pallaches were a family of Hispanic Jews who settled in Fez after the Jews were expelled from Spain in 1492. That's what's quoted. Obviously, let's just have a brief outline over here. 1480, we know Queen Isabella I of Castile and King Ferdinand II of Aragon established Tribunal of the Holy Office of the Inquisition, commonly known as Spanish Inquisition. That's stage and time. Come what, 1496, December the 5th, King Emmanuel I of Portugal decreed that all Jews must convert to Catholicism or leave the country. Jews who converted, let's say, to Christianity were known as New Christians. The initial edict of expulsion turned into an edict of forced conversion by 1497. I think it was in 1506 the Lisbon massacre would erupt in Portugal, and in 1535 Portugal launched its own inquisition. Portuguese Jews fled to Ottoman Empire, specific areas like Thessaloniki, Istanbul, Morocco. Some went to Amsterdam, France, Brazil, various other places also. Some of the most famous descendants of Portuguese Jews who lived outside of Portugal included people like Baruch Spinoza, for example, or an economist, David Ricardo. Portugal was under, let's say, control of Philippine dynasty of the House of Habsburg, and the Portuguese Inquisition blended, let's just say, with the Spanish. I think it took place between 1581 to 1640 was the House of Habsburg. There was, let's just say, the combined Spanish-Portuguese Inquisitions obviously caused one of the largest diasporas in Jewish history. Okay, now in Iberia, let's explore the family in the Iberia. There's a Professor Mercedes Garcia Arana. He says the Pallaches were a Sephardi family, let's say, descended from the Bnei Pallache. I think it's mentioned by the 12th century chronicler Rav Ibn Abraham Ibn Daud. I think he was a famous Spanish Jewish astronomer, philosopher, historian, a man we've spoken about before, the Ravad, we would say. He was stating as the greatest of the families of the Korboda. I think other people would say that other professors will weigh in, especially Reginald Aldworth Daly says Pelagies were persecuted Sephardi Jews of Portugal were exiled to Holland. And another one, a Professor Fion, says the Pallache family also emigrated to the Netherlands, perhaps from Portugal or Spain, or second, another, let's say they emigrated directly from their native Spain to Fez. Other quotations of it. Let's explore. Okay, Morocco over here. Now, the Jewish presence in Morocco goes back to the Carthage. Let's just say fared moderately and often prospered under Muslim rule. From Morocco, they filtered into the Al-Andalus. This was between 711 to 1492, but would return during the Spanish Reconquista, which mounted in the 10th century, and Spanish-Portuguese expulsions and inquisitions sent Jews back to Morocco on a larger scale at that point in time. That would actually result partly in Moroccan cities overcrowded, and there was other issues that took place in Jewish quarters over there. There was a man named Moïse al-Palas, who was born in Marrakesh, who was actually a rabbi who had moved to Tetuan and lived for a time in Saloniki, then in Ottoman Empire. He passed away, I think, in Venice and published a book by Yakel the Moshe in 1597, an autobiography. Now, it's actually interesting. Rabbi Isaac Pallache was a rabbi in Fez. He was first mentioned in, let's say, the Takanot, the Jewish community statutes, I think in 1588. His sons included Samuel Pallache and Joseph Pallache. Isaac was married to a sister of Fez's grand rabbi, Judah Uziel. His nephew happened to be Isaac Uziel, who became the rabbi of Neve Shalom in Amsterdam. Very, very interesting. So hopefully we'll be able at one stage to speak about those rabbis. Okay, now in the Netherlands, the Pallache family in the Netherlands. The Jews began to settle in the Netherlands, obviously late 16th century. It was obviously partly because of the independence from Spanish control in 1581. The Dutch Republic attracted Sephardic Jews in the Netherlands, let's say, as a refuge from a common enemy in Spain. There was an unsuccessful attempt to return to Spain, I believe in the mid-1600s. So Samuel and Joseph Pallache set a new branch of the Pallache family in Netherlands by 1608. They represented the benefactor Zidan al-Nasir of Morocco, as well as the Dutch government, let's just say. And there was negotiations, I think, with Morocco, the Netherlands, Spain, France, England, Ottoman Empire, and other European states, often on behalf of more than one sponsoring state, let's say on their behalf. The sons of both brothers continued their father's footsteps. Some remained in the Netherlands, especially David Pallache. Others returned to Morocco, especially Moses Pallache. In the Netherlands, the surname solidified as Pallache or Pallache, P-A-L-A-C-H-E, a spelling variation which started in the 16th century. And the family continues as that spelling in the Netherlands to present. Various members of the family include famous Rabbi Isaac Judah Pallache, who we spoke about, and also Professor Judah Leon Pallache, who we spoke about before. He passed away in 1944. Interesting enough. Now, the Pallache brothers and their sons did not marry members of the Portuguese Sephardic community in the Netherlands. It seems significant that no male member of the Pallache family ever married a woman from the Portuguese community. So that's a very interesting tidbit. It is surely significant that neither Samuel nor any of his heirs were ever to marry into the, let's say, great trading families of Portuguese nation. I believe in September 2016, 1643 marriage certificates were discovered for David Pallache. I think he lived between 1598 to 1650, and he was one of 5 sons of Joseph Pallache, and Judith Lindo of Antwerp. This was daughter of Esther Lindo. Death details by David Pallache also confirmed the marriage. Further, 3 years later, I think in 1646, Samuel Pallache, son of Isaac Joseph Pallache and nephew of David Pallache, married Abigail, who was the sister of Judith Lindo. It's reported over. Now, how about the Turkish country, Turkey, over here? Where's the family come from? So it's first reported that Pallache in Turkey was then part of the Ottoman Empire. Dates back to 1695, right at the end of the 17th century, when Isaac Pallache of Livorno, Italy, wrote a letter to the Dutch council in Smyrna. I think the Pallache appear in Izmir, let's say no later than the time of Rabbi Yaakov Pallache, who would marry the daughter of a Grand Rabbi, Joseph ben Chaim Chazan. Now the rabbi, I believe we've mentioned about on various occasions before, he was a very great rabbi at this time. He was a chief rabbi actually in Jerusalem, and I think he was in Hebron, and I think it was actually 1813 he'd be appointed the chief rabbi of Jerusalem, very prominent position. Now Jacob's son became a grand rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Pallache, passed away in 1868. Two of whose sons, Rabbi Avraham Pallache and Rabbi Isaac, or Rachim Nissim, also became very great rabbis over there. Okay, now there's more states actually chronicled in the Encyclopedia of Jews in the Islamic World, where they will testify about him. I believe in 1863, a London-based Jewish newspaper noted the chief rabbi of Smyrna, Pallache, a venerable, let's say, octogenarian, seems to command universal respect by his truly patriarchal appearance. His countenance reflected the gentleness of his heart. I think part of the American Israelite, another writing, 1860, the Diet Deborah, reported a gather of 4 rabbis who unanimously supported the wish of the late Avraham Pallache that his son be appointed in his place. Very interesting enough. So they talk a bit about the family history in of itself. They say the name of Chaim Nissim Pallache appears as a treasure in Smyrna of the Alliance Israelite Universal. I think it's a school system that was founded in 1860. Now, I think in mid-1873, the Alliance of Paris and the Anglo-Jewish Association of London agreed to establish a school for Jewish boys and girls in Smyrna under the guidance of Dr. Pallache, chief rabbi of Smyrna at that point in time. And the newspaper, I think in 1891, would report, let's say, commentaries about the chief rabbi Avraham Pallache, who was on his way to Istanbul as part of books sent there. In 1893, a newspaper reported that the importance of a grand rabbi Pallache, added by his son Nissim Pallache, which is a common name. Now, the Pallache continued in Turkey past the 1922, let's say, great fire of Smyrna. Some left during Allied evacuation during World War II. Unfortunately, some, it's reported over, they could have been murdered during the Holocaust. Okay, now the family in Egypt, let's look at the Egyptian side over here. No later than the close of 19th century, a branch of Pallache family had settled in Egypt, with some remaining in Cairo, which members of the family had, let's say, what foreign citizenship as undetermined, let's just say. Now, I think Spanish under the decree law of 29th December 1948, neither Pallache nor variations of his family name appear in either Egyptian or Greek lists, apparently it's reported over. So, post-1948, the year of the Medinat Israel. Now, they were famous, this family, for having a department store also. Now, the tidbit, I think there were Pallache brothers in 1897 called Vita and Henry. They established, and the family established the Pallache department store. I think in 1904 the company's name was Pallache Menaske et Fils, and it would later on become Pallache Fils. Chaim et Siah. It was located in Musky Street, I think, in the old Opera House. And I think Vita Pallache would become the head of the store. There were newspapers that mentioned Mr. Vita Pallache as a distinguished, let's say, chief of the house of the Pallache Pils, let's just say. And they go on, so, and I think this store would have, let's say, various different names, variations of names it will take on. I think Vita passed away in 1917. His oldest son, Albert Vita, succeeded as a manager, and the store will end up having offices overseas in Paris, I think 1922, various different purchase draperies and hardware and so on and so forth. And I think it will branch out more and more as time goes on. And I would recommend everyone to maybe read in and look into the history within regards to that. There's much actually reported over. I'm looking in the Wikipedia article at the moment, and I think, for example, in the year 19th, it really grew in a huge amount with advertising, so on and so forth. I think Kamot 1932, Pallache first used an image with its ads with faces on furniture and beds, so they really did branch out, and they really used modern technology at the time to really get the name about. I think in 1933, the family of Mahmoud Abel Bak El Bitar had lawsuits reported over against Pallache, the Haim and Co. And the Pallache department store experienced financial difficulties come 1935. I'm not sure if it's related to that. In August 1937, the original department store of Les Grands Magasins Pallache, Haim and Co. on Musky Street, it burned, and the family did not rebuild after that. I think there's some in the Laura newspaper of Cairo. It actually gives a whole report within regards to this specific, let's say, incident. And obviously, at that stage in time, there wouldn't be more adverts within regards to in the newspapers itself. And I think the family company or derivatives continued. They started advertising in Alexandria, and there were various variations. I think most Pallache had left Cairo in diaspora, I think come up 1958, for example. And yeah, that's interesting. The Ahmiya Society, what was this? As communal leaders, we talked about, they were great communal leaders. The Pallache family supported Jewish causes inside and outside of Egypt, especially in 1907. Vita Pallache was serving as president of the La Société de Bienfaisance et Hachemiyah, I believe that's actually called about. I think especially in 1901, a Jewish mutual aid society founded in Cairo called the Hachemiyah, Institute of Charitable Organizations for Turkish Ottoman Jews residing in Egypt, it happened to be. And I think, for example, Baroness de Rothschild in 1907 made a gift of a large amount, especially maybe 3,000 francs, which was a huge amount of money at that point in time. Especially in 1916 to 1917, the Pallache Filsheim & Co. was one of numerous donors in Egypt to the Yeshivat Eretz Yisrael Rabbinic Institution, for example, and he was very much involved in that. Now, with regards to Cairo residences, they were very involved with the Pallache family, settled around the main home of Vita Pallache, a villa, happened to be, I think, in Ahmed Basha Street, in Garden City in Cairo. Now, two of Vita's grandchildren, siblings, happened to be Eddie and Colette, wrote memoirs of the childhood in Cairo and Paris, which documented, let's just say, Jewish life in Cairo in 1930s, including traditions, use of Ladino, and food recipes. Now, the Pallache family in Alexandria, they would also settle there. And there was a man named Mordechai Pallache Miram, was likewise a Sephardi, but from Constantinople, when he married Rosa Altman, Ashkenazic, Yekish, German. Several of their children born in Constantinople, but to escape an outbreak of plague came to Alexandria eventually. So that's another tidbit. The Congo venture, apparently after World War I, participation of the Force Publique in the Eastern African campaign resulted in League of Nations mandate of the previously German colony of Rwanda or Burundi to Belgium as Belgian Congo, for example. And Henry Pallache was the son of Menachem, son of Aaron Henry Pallache, founded La Coupole store in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of the Congo, reported over. So there's a whole lot of writing, the chronicles in regards to that. Now they featured in other countries also. Apparently they established themselves in Jamaica by the 19th century, apparently in the sugar trade. In 1825, the London Gazette posted notice of partnership that included Mordechai Pallache and Alexander Pallache of Kingston, for example. In 1855, Vita Pallache appears in Argentina. In 1911, Camille Pallache, daughter of late Aaron Pallache of Cairo, married Benjamin Biggio in a synagogue in Muldeth Road, Manchester, Port Over. Now, the 21st century, we'll see. For example, they continued expulsions and diaspora, dispersed Pallache families to countries in the Americas, Europe, and farther afield. In the 20th century, the Pallache had established itself even in the United States. The family of noted American mineralogist Charles Pallache passed away in 1854. He was a crystallographer, he was a mineralogist, and very, very famous. He came to California from Jamaica, and his descendants include Judith Pallache Gregory, passed away in 2017. He was a writer, counselor, educator, and numerous Pallache came to the United States from Turkey, Egypt, including Colette Rosant, apparently. She was a French-American cookbook author and journalist, translator, and restaurateur, obviously a member of the Pallache family. Now, within regards to synagogues, let's explore a bit within regards to the synagogues in those different countries. Firstly, in the Netherlands, Samuel Pallache may have helped found the first synagogue in Amsterdam as early as 1769. David Franco Mendes records a first minyan in Amsterdam with 16 worshippers, let's just say, people praying, including Samuel and Joseph Pallache. Other sources go far to claim that the first minyan occurred in Pallache's home even, interesting enough, around 1590, 1596. And there's another one, I think, in the Book of Man of Three Worlds, Samuel Pallache. I think Gerard A. Wiggers would point out that the Pallache brothers arrived in Amsterdam in the first decade of the following century. Okay, now in Turkey, as we've spoken about before, They really became great there, especially in 1840. The Pallache home in Smyrna became today's Bet Hillel synagogue and seat of a yeshiva of Beit Midrash, let's just say. It's in the marketplace of there, Kemarati, and it's named after Chaim or Avram Pallache, I believe, which is interesting enough. Actually says as a professor, I think Stanford J. Shaw, stated it was Chaim Pallache who founded the Bet Hillel Pallache, or his son Abraham. Apparently, that's what's chronicled over. The synagogue, so however, the name Avram Pallache Synagogue was also used by the community. This synagogue, I think, forms a cluster of 8 extant, all adjacent, making Izmir is the only place in city or in the world in which an unusual cluster of synagogues, bearing a type of medical Spanish architectural style, is preserved. Very interesting enough. I think Bet Hillel Synagogue is as Avram Pallache Synagogue, but then states the synagogue was founded by Pallache family in 1840, which is interesting enough. So, as a man. Now in Egypt, they were, as we said before, they were one of many families over that helped to maintain the Sephardic Shara Shemaim synagogue in Cairo on the Adli Street in downtown Cairo. I think we've spoken about this place before. It's also known as the Temple Ismailila and the Adli Street Synagogue, obviously an Orthodox congregation, I think located in the Adli Street in Cairo, it happens to be. Now the yeshivot, including in Turkey, Journey into Jewish History, Heritage, states that Chaim Pallache founded Beit Hillel Yeshiva in Izmir in the mid of the 19th century, and there's various sources on this. And Israel, the seminary was named in Chaim Pallache's honor in the Bnei Brak, which is also interesting. Now, they wrote many different writings. Most notably, Rabbi Chaim Pallache would publish 82 publications, 36 as of September 2016, and are listed under Chaim Pallache. Many other rabbinical works by the Pallache rabbis include Rabbi Avram Pallache, Rachamim Nissim Pallache, and Rabbi Joseph Pallache. Also very interesting enough, so it would be great if they could meet. It would be great if we could learn more about these people also. Apparently they were rabbis. Then there was Colette Rossani, who we talked about, maybe an author, published The Apricots of the Nile in 1999-2004. And Eddie Pallache also has a prominent role. He's I think French-Israeli chemical engineer and author. So they became great in the spiritual field, and many of them, the Pallache family, would get prominent, let's say, high-up roles in general society in general. Now, spellings of this family name, they differ from place to place, which we have to point out. But the family tree, I think the approach that the outline gives, they use Moises Rachmani's essay with regards to establishing the family tree. I think there's an index developed for Rabbi Abraham Galanti's Jews of Turkey, which would become the major source with regards to the Izmir branch of the family, maybe with regards to the family tree. Now, who were the rabbis in Morocco and Netherlands in the 16th and 17th century? Moïse al-Palassi passed away, I believe, in 1535. Isaac Pallache passed away in 1560. Isaac Uziel passed away in 1622. He was, I think, a nephew of Isaac. Samuel Pallache passed away in 1616. Isaac Pallache, he was co-envoy of, let's say, Morocco to Poland, and the consul in the Netherlands to Saleh in Morocco. Then there was Joseph Pallache. He was an envoy, a dragoman of Morocco, for example. He lived between 1616 and 1638. Very great rabbi. Samuel Pallache, we don't know the date of his passing. He represents his uncle Moses' request to marry Levitically the wife of his other uncle David, it's reported over, which is interesting. Menashe ben Shmuel, Samuel, helped gain return of Jews, let's say, to England from Oliver Cromwell. David Pallache, for example, he passed away in 1650. He was an envoy of Morocco. King Louis, I think the 8th. Moses Pallache was an advisor of 4 sultans of Morocco till 1650, which we have to point out. And Avram Pallache, 17th century merchant to Safi in Morocco. Now, 17th to 20th century in the Netherlands, it was a colourful time period, let's just say. Pallache, let's just say, in the Netherlands, Isaac Judah Pallache, he lived until 1927. He was a Grand Rabbis of Amsterdam, the Bet Din. And Judah Leon Pallache passed away in 1940. He was a professor of Oriental languages at the University in Amsterdam. Now, the Ottoman Empire, for example, Isaac Pallache of Livorno, Italy, and later Izmir, he would write a letter to the Dutch council in Smyrna requesting projection for Solomon Moses, I think 1695. Samuel Pallache, we mentioned before, passed away in 1732. Jacob Pallache passed away, or Jacob Pallache passed away in 1828. Isaac was a brother of Chaim. Solomon Pallache, there was Yeshua Pallache of Tzfat. He happens to be a rabbi of Tzfat. Chaim Pallache, the famous chief rabbi, he was grand rabbi, Kabbalist, authored more than 18 books, I believe, or possibly even more, which is actually interesting. And so Chaim Pallache was a very, very great rabbi. He was Kabbalist. Chacham Bashi passed away in 1869, sadly. Avram Pallache was also grand rabbi. He was a son, I think, of Rav Chaim. He funded the Beit Hillel Yeshiva in 1840 and chief rabbi in 1869. Very interesting. Solomon Pallache, next one, he's the eldest son of Abraham, whose candidacy for let's say to be the grand rabbi actually failed. Then Nissim Pallache was the son of Abraham who supported his brother Solomon for grand rabbi. Isaac Pallache, son of Chaim, he was also known as Rachmim Nissim Pallache, rabbi, grand rabbi, and it's really brilliant. And the author of Avot Harush at the Isaac Samuel Segura printing house in Izmir, 1869. He had passed away. Joseph Pallache, he lived between 1819 to 1896. Rabbi, he was the author of Yosef Abraham to Ibra in Ladina, for example. So there was other famous people, including Hillel Pallache, was a member of the community council. Jacob Pallache, director of a Maftirim in Istanbul. Nissim Pallache helped the Jewish hospital in Istanbul, early 20th century. Very interesting. Benjamin Pallache would become a rabbi in Tyra, a district in Izmir. Now, in Egypt, they were also about. I think Vitza Pallache passed away in 1917, who we mentioned before. Isaac Pallache passed away in 1940. Eddie Pallache passed away in 2016, quite recently. And Colette Pallache Rossand is currently living, and Juliet also. So Henry Pallache, I think the brother of Fita, left Izmir for Cairo once to trade in chemical products in Egypt and Sudan. Now, elsewhere in the 17th century, there were more great rabbis from the Pallache rabbinic dynasty, let's just say. Jacob Pallache, 17th century Marrakesh rabbi, and would later on be in Egypt. He was apparently reported over. Jacob Pallache was supporter of Shabtai Tzvi. We know about the heresy with regards to him. Abraham Pallache, he was a rabbi of Tzfat in the 18th century. Another Abraham Pallache was a rabbi in Tetuan in the 19th century. Samuel Pallache was a rabbi in the Netherlands, author of books. So that's interesting. Moshe Samuel Pallache passed away in 1859, the rabbi of Jerusalem. Pallache of Jamaica and the United States of America. Charles Pallache, for example, passed away in 1954. Alice Jones passed away in 1989. And I've got to prepare for... Yeah, so that's very interesting. So just preparing just more information within regards to this. Judith Pallache Gregory passed away in 2017, quite recently. There's a whole list of, unfortunately, there was some Holocaust victims, which I have to mention about over here, just looking at this article. But yeah, please learn more about the history and tune in every day to find out information. Great rabbis, especially on date of their Hillel. So wishing blessings to you from Israel. Take care and be well.